The first colony died on a Tuesday morning. Commander Wu was drinking coffee when the distress signal arrived. The cup fell from his hand and shattered on the floor. He did not notice. His eyes were locked on the screen showing the feed from New Colony. The sky above the settlement was burning, not with fire but with energy beams that cut through the atmosphere like knives through paper. Buildings melted into liquid metal. The streets turned to glass. 300,000 people lived in New. Within 5 minutes, none of them remained alive. Wu's hands shook as he tried to establish contact. His younger sister worked at the medical center there. She had sent him a message just yesterday, talking about the new garden she was planting. Now the communication line showed only static and the terrible silence of death. The attack came from orbit. 6 massive ships hung in space above the colony, their weapons still glowing hot. They belonged to the Dominion, an alien empire that controlled over 200 star systems. They looked like tall insects with 4 arms and smooth gray skin. They had made contact with humanity 5 years ago, and the relationship had always been cold. But this was not coldness, this was murder. Haven's Gate Colony died next, then Terra Nova. The pattern was the same each time. The ships appeared without warning. They fired their weapons until nothing remained but ash and molten rock. No demands were made. No warnings were given. They simply destroyed everything and everyone. 2 million human beings died in a single day. Admiral De called an emergency meeting at Earth Defense Command. She was a thin woman with gray hair and eyes that had seen too many wars. Officers filled the command center, their faces pale with shock and rage. Wu was among them, his uniform still wet from the coffee he had spilled. A large screen showed the broadcast. It had been sent to every human world and station. A commander appeared on the screen, its voice translated into human languages by computer. "Primitive humans," they said, "you have entered sacred expansion zones of the Dominion. This is forbidden. Your colonies were destroyed as punishment. You have 30 cycles to submit to authority. If you refuse, all human worlds will be cleansed. There will be no negotiation. Submit or face extinction." The broadcast ended. The command center fell silent. An officer named Mi-sun spoke first. She was this tactical advisor, known for her calm thinking even in crisis. "They hit us without warning," she said quietly. 3 colonies, 2 million civilians. They want us to be afraid." "Are we afraid?" De asked the room. Wu felt something cold settle in his chest. It was not fear. It was something older and darker. He thought of laughing in her last video message. He thought of her garden that would never grow. He looked at De and spoke clearly. "No, Admiral, we are not afraid." Around the room, other officers nodded. De studied their faces. She saw no panic there, no desperation. Instead, she saw the hard determination that had carried humanity through wars and disasters for thousands of years. Humans knew how to survive. They also knew how to fight back. "They think we are weak," De said. "They think we will bow down because they killed our people. They made a mistake." She turned to a scientist standing near the back of the room. His name was Sung, and he led Earth's Stellar Engineering Division. Most people did not know what that division actually did. Its work was secret, buried under layers of classified protocols. "Dr. Sung," De said, "is the network ready?" Sung adjusted his glasses. His voice was steady but quiet. "Yes, Admiral, it has been ready for 18 years. We hoped we would never use it." "Hopes are luxuries," De replied. "Begin activation procedures. I want full operational status in 48 hours. Another officer, Dong, cleared his throat. "Admiral, if we use Protocol Omega, there is no going back. The galaxy will never see humanity the same way again." This expression did not change. "They saw fit to burn our children alive from orbit. They made their choice. Now we make ours. We gave the galaxy 5 years to see that we wanted peace. They answered with genocide. Very well, we will speak their language." She turned to Wu. "Commander, I need you for a special mission. Can you maintain composure?" Wu thought of his little sister who wanted to heal people, who grew gardens on distant worlds, who died screaming as the sky turned to fire. He felt the rage inside him, but he kept it locked away behind cold discipline. "Yes, Admiral, tell me what you need." "You will record a message to the High Command. It will be brief, one sentence only. Then we will show them what humanity does to genocidal monsters." The meeting continued for 3 more hours. Plans were made, orders were given, resources were allocated. Throughout it all, Earth's defense network hummed to life. In hidden facilities across the solar system, in secret bases on distant asteroids, in classified stations at the edge of known space, humanity's darkest weapon began to wake up. They had made a terrible assumption. They assumed humans were like other species they had conquered, weak, divided, easy to terrify into submission. But humanity had learned bitter lessons from its own bloody history. Humans knew what it meant to face extinction. They knew what it took to survive when powerful enemies wanted to destroy them. And they had prepared for this day, hoping it would never come, but ready when it did. In a quiet moment, Wu stood alone in an observation room, looking out at Earth floating peacefully below. Somewhere on that world, his parents would soon learn that their daughter was dead. He wondered what they would think if they knew what he was about to help unleash. Then he remembered space melting in the heat of weapons. He remembered 300,000 people who died for the crime of building homes on a new world. No, there would be no mercy, not for this. Admiral Da found him there an hour later. She stood beside him in silence, 2 soldiers who carried the weight of what was coming. "They will call us monsters," she said softly. "Yes," Wu agreed, "but our children will live, that is what matters." Da nodded slowly. In her hand was a data pad containing Protocol Omega, the contingency plan that humanity had built in secret. The plan that would change everything. The plan that would make them understand what it meant to threaten human survival. "Record your message tomorrow," she told Wu. "Make it clear, make it simple. Give them one chance to evacuate their civilians. Then we burn their worlds." Wu saluted. "Yes, Admiral." The die was cast. Humanity's response was coming, and the galaxy would never be the same. The recording studio was cold and empty. Wu stood before the camera, his uniform perfect, his face expressionless. Behind the camera, Admiral Da watched with her arms crossed. A technician named Bora worked the controls. "Whenever you are ready, Commander," Bora said quietly. Wu took a breath. He thought about what he was about to say. One sentence. That was all. But those words would echo across the galaxy for centuries to come. The red recording light came on. "Your worlds will burn," Wu said, his voice completely calm. "You have 72 hours to evacuate all civilian populations from your core systems." The light went off. The message was recorded. Bora looked shocked, De simply nodded. "Send it directly to the High Command," Da ordered. "Maximum priority. Make sure they cannot ignore it." The message was transmitted within minutes. It traveled through space at faster-than-light speeds, carried by quantum communication systems. They received it at their capital world 6 hours later. War Leader watched the human message with his council. Was old for his gray skin marked with scars from a dozen campaigns. He had personally ordered the destruction of the human colonies. In his mind, it had been a simple matter. Humans had trespassed. Humans had been punished. Now they would submit. But this message confused him. Burn. The humans would burn worlds. How? They had no fleet that could threaten even a single system. Their weapons were primitive. Their ships were slow. One of the council members, a younger named, seemed nervous. "War Leader, should we investigate this threat?" Made a sound like laughter. "Investigate what? The humans are bluffing. They hope to frighten us with empty words. It is pathetic." But did not simply dismiss the message. He was cruel but not stupid. He ordered it to be broadcast across the entire Dominion. Let all see the desperate threats of these weak mammals. Let everyone laugh at human foolishness. The broadcast went out. Billions of saw the human commander's cold face and heard his warning. They did laugh. They shared jokes about burning worlds. They mocked the humans for thinking they could threaten the mighty Dominion. None of them evacuated. Why would they? The very idea was ridiculous. While they laughed, humanity worked. Dr. Sung stood in a secure facility deep beneath the surface of Earth. Around him, dozens of scientists and engineers monitored screens showing data from across known space. An engineer named Sora approached him with a tablet. "Doctor, all primary nodes are responding," Sora reported. "Network integrity is at 98%. We are ready for activation." Sung nodded slowly. He looked tired. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. "How many installations do we have in space?" 47 systems have full coverage," Sora answered. "Each one has been in position for at least 15 years. The never detected them." 15 years. Sung remembered when the project had started. Back then, it was called the Stellar Observation Network, a scientific mission to study distant stars. That was the cover story. The truth was much darker. Humanity had learned a terrible fact about the universe. Stars could be manipulated. With the right technology placed at the right positions, you could trigger instabilities in a star's core. You could cause solar storms of incredible power. You could turn a peaceful sun into a weapon. It had taken decades of research. Thousands of scientists had worked on the project. Ships had secretly placed devices in systems all across the galaxy, hidden in asteroid fields and on dead moons. The devices were small, no larger than a car, and they were completely passive. They just sat there, waiting, invisible to normal scans. They had never known humans, were building a doomsday weapon in their own star systems. "Begin final diagnostic checks," Sung ordered. "I want zero margin for error. If we do this, it must work perfectly." "Yes, Doctor," Sora said, then hesitated. "Sir, may I ask a question?" "Go ahead." "After this, will people call us monsters?" Sung was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he said, "Probably, but our children will be alive to judge us." They made sure their judgment would not matter. Meanwhile, in space, another part of humanity's plan was moving. Captain Sangwoo commanded a ship called Shadow of Earth. It was a stealth frigate designed to be invisible to sensors. Sangwoo and his crew had been in deep space for 6 days now, traveling toward the home system. On the bridge, a pilot named monitored their approach. "Captain, we are 3 hours from optimal position. Still no sign of detection." "Good," Sangwoo said. "Maintain stealth protocols, no active scans, passive sensors only." His mission was simple but critical. Shadow of Earth carried the command and control equipment for the devices hidden throughout space. When the order came, Sangwoo's ship would send the activation signal. The devices would wake up, and the stars would begin to die. Sangwoo was 32 years old. He had joined the space fleet because he loved exploring the galaxy. He had never wanted to be a weapon of war, but the had changed everything. They had shown the galaxy that they were willing to commit genocide for convenience. "Captain," another crew member said, "encrypted message from Earth Defense Command." Sangwoo opened the message. It was from Admiral Duh. The message was brief. "Deploy to final positions. Await activation order. Remember that we gave them warning. What happens next is their choice, not ours." He closed the message and looked at his crew. They were all young, all volunteers. They knew what they were carrying. They knew what they were about to do. "Take us in," Sangwoo ordered quietly. Shadow of Earth slipped silently through space, a ghost carrying death to distant suns. On Earth, the countdown continued. 60 hours remaining, then 50, then 40. More human ships moved into position. They were stealth vessels like Shadow of Earth. each one carrying targeting data for different systems. They spread out across enemy space like invisible spiders building a web. The Still did not notice. They were too busy laughing at human threats and preparing their own invasion fleet. War leader ordered 10 more human outposts to be destroyed. He wanted to teach these primitives a lesson they would never forget. The outposts died. Thousands more humans perished. The broadcasted their victories, expecting humanity to surrender in despair. Instead, humanity's message never changed. It played on repeat, sent every 6 hours to command. Your worlds will burn. Evacuate now. With 36 hours remaining, a junior scientist named Pix noticed something odd. She was studying solar activity in her home system when she detected unusual readings. The star showed minor fluctuations that did not match normal patterns. Pix reported it to her supervisor, who dismissed it. Solar activity varied all the time. It meant nothing. Pix went home that evening and played with her offspring. She told them a bedtime story about the great explorers who had conquered the stars. The children fell asleep dreaming of glory and empire. They had less than 2 days to live, but Pix did not know this. None of them knew. Back on Earth, Wu stood in the command center beside Admiral Duh. A large countdown display showed the remaining time. They are still not evacuating, Mi-sun reported quietly. Intelligence shows normal civilian activity across all core worlds. This face was stone. Send the message again, final warning. The message went out for the last time. Wu watched it being transmitted and felt hollow inside. They had given the every chance. They had warned them clearly. They had provided time to save innocent lives. But they were too proud, too confident in their power. They could not imagine that humans possessed a weapon that could threaten them. 24 hours, De said softly. Then we show them what humanity has become. The 72 hours ended on a Thursday morning. Admiral De stood in Earth Defense Command, surrounded by screens showing data from across the galaxy. Wu stood to her right, Mi-sun to her left. The room was filled with officers, technicians, and scientists. Everyone was silent. A countdown timer on the main screen reached 0. De waited exactly 1 more minute. She gave the 60 final seconds to change their minds, to show even a hint of evacuating their civilians. Intelligence feeds showed nothing. Cities continued their normal routines. Children went to schools. Workers went to jobs. No one fled. No one prepared. War leader had sent a final mocking message just an hour before. It played now on a secondary screen. Humans, translated voice said, we grow tired of your empty threats. Your 72 hours have passed. We see no fire. We see no burning. We see only weak mammals who cannot accept their place in the galaxy. Today, we will destroy 10 more of your worlds. Perhaps then you will learn to submit properly. The message ended. De's jaw tightened. She looked at Wu. Their eyes met. She saw the same cold determination in his face that she felt in her own heart. They had tried. They had given warning. They had offered mercy to the innocent. They had chosen genocide. Very well, humanity would answer in kind. Colonel Mi-sun, De said clearly, commence operation. Mi-sun's hand moved to a control panel. Her voice was steady but quiet. Authorization code required, Admiral. De spoke a 16-digit code. Wu added his own code. Mi-sun completed the sequence with hers. 3 senior officers, 3 codes, 3 people who would carry this burden forever. The computer accepted the codes. A new message appeared on every screen. Operation SUNFALL authorized. EXECUTING. Deep beneath Earth's surface in the secure facility, Dr. Sung received the signal. His hands trembled as he entered commands into his terminal. Around him, other scientists worked frantically, checking systems one final time. Engineer Sora stood beside him. All nodes responding, Doctor. Network synchronization is perfect. We are ready. Sung looked at his team. Some of them had tears in their eyes, others looked sick. They all knew what they were about to do. They would kill billions. Not quickly, not with weapons, but with stars themselves. Send activation signal, Sung ordered. All systems, all targets, may God forgive us. Sora pressed the transmit button. The signal traveled outward at faster-than-light speed, carried by quantum entanglement. It reached the hidden human ships scattered across space almost instantly. Captain Sangwoo received the signal aboard Shadow of Earth. For a moment he just stared at it. This was real. This was actually happening. He thought about turning back, refusing the order, trying to find another way. Then he remembered the recordings from Nu. He remembered death. He remembered 2 million humans who had been murdered without warning. Activate all devices, Sangwoo ordered his crew. Full network deployment. Pilot's hands moved across her controls. Transmitting activation sequence. All devices responding. Network online. Throughout space, in 47 different star systems, small devices that had slept for decades suddenly woke up. They had been placed carefully, positioned at specific points around suns. Each device was surrounded by a magnetic field that made it nearly invisible. Each one had waited patiently for this moment. Now they activated. The devices did not attack the stars. Not directly. Instead, they created precisely calibrated magnetic pulses that triggered existing instabilities in each star's core. Stars are delicate things, despite their size. The right push at the right time can cause cascading reactions. Within minutes, all 47 suns began to destabilize. A scientist at a solar observatory was the first to notice. Her instruments showed impossible readings. The sun was entering a state of extreme activity. Coronal mass ejections were building. Solar storms were forming. She called her supervisor in panic. Her supervisor called the Planetary Defense Center. The Defense Center called War Leader. Stared at the data in disbelief. This is not possible. Stars do not behave this way. But the data did not lie. His sun was dying, not exploding, which would have been quick. Instead, it was generating massive waves of radiation that would sterilize every planet in the system. The first wave would arrive in 6 hours. Reports began flooding in from other worlds. Every core system was affected. 47 suns all entering crisis simultaneously. It was coordinated, deliberate, impossible. Except the humans had done it. Finally understood. The warning had not been a bluff. The humans possessed a weapon beyond anything they had imagined. They could turn stars themselves into weapons of extinction. "Evacuate the cities," shouted at his staff. "All civilians to orbital transports, move." But it was too late. They had not prepared. Their transport ships were scattered. Their evacuation plans were outdated. They had 6 hours to save billions of people, and they did not have nearly enough ships. Panic spread across every core world. People ran to spaceports. Ships launched overloaded. Fights broke out over seats. Children were separated from parents. The elderly were left behind. On Earth, Wu watched the intelligence feeds showing worlds descending into chaos. He felt nothing. No satisfaction. No guilt. Just cold emptiness. Beside him, Admiral De spoke quietly. "They had 72 hours. We gave them time." "Yes, Admiral," Wu replied. A communication request came in. It was from War Leader himself. They accepted it. His face appeared on screen. The proud alien warrior now looked desperate. "Stop this. Call off your weapon. We will negotiate. We will pay reparations. We will withdraw from human space." This voice was ice. "You had 72 hours. You chose to murder 10 more of our worlds instead of evacuating yours. This is the consequence of your choice." "But the civilians," shouted, "billions of innocent people." "Like the 2 million innocent people you burned on Nu?" Da asked coldly. "Like the children you murdered on Haven's Gate? You are experiencing what you inflicted on us, war leader. The only difference is that we gave you warning. You gave our people none. Please, begged. We were wrong, we made a mistake, mercy. De leaned forward. Did our people beg for mercy while you burned them? Did you stop when they pleaded? No, you laughed. You mocked our pain. You broadcast their deaths as entertainment. Now you understand what they felt. She cut the transmission. Sent more messages. Other leaders sent desperate pleas. They offered surrender treaties, anything humanity wanted. They refused every communication. The countdown continued. 5 hours, 4 hours, 3. Some escaped. Perhaps 10% of the populations on the affected worlds managed to reach ships and flee before the solar storms hit, but 90% remained on the surface. They had nowhere to go. In a quiet moment, a young officer named Min approached Da. Min had been part of the team that built the stellar manipulation devices. He looked pale and sick. Admiral, Min said softly, did we have to do this? Were there no other options? Da looked at him for a long time. What option did they give to the families on Nu? They could have issued a warning. They could have given people time to evacuate. Instead, they chose mass murder. We gave them 72 hours to evacuate their civilians. They chose pride over their people's lives. The blood is on their hands, not ours. Min nodded slowly but still looked troubled. He walked away. Wu understood Min's doubt. He felt it too, deep inside. What humanity was doing was terrible beyond words, but the alternative was extinction. They had proven they would murder millions without hesitation. If humanity had not responded with overwhelming force, they would have continued their genocide until every human world was ash. The first solar storm hit the exactly 6 hours after activation. The radiation was invisible but deadly. It struck the planet's atmosphere and set it on fire. The sky glowed with unnatural colors. Electromagnetic pulses destroyed all electronic equipment. The temperature began to rise. People on the surface had perhaps 20 minutes before the heat became lethal. Those who survived the initial blast sought shelter underground, but it was not enough. The radiation penetrated deep. The heat followed. Captain Sangwoo watched from space as they died. His ship's sensors showed the planet's surface temperature rising rapidly. Within an hour, oceans were boiling. The atmosphere was burning away. Captain said quietly, we have civilian ships on sensors, small transports. They are fleeing the system. Do not engage them, Sangwoo ordered. Our mission is complete. Let them go. His ship had rescued some civilians when there was time, pulling survivors from failing transport ships. It was not mercy. It was evidence. Witnesses who would tell the galaxy that humanity had given warning. The week that followed would be remembered as the darkest in galactic history. 47 star systems burned, not all at once but in waves. Each sun released massive solar storms that sterilized planets. The radiation was so intense that it destroyed the ozone layers of every world. Atmospheres ignited, water boiled away, metal melted. The who escaped carried stories of horror. They told of parents throwing children onto departing ships, knowing they would never see them again. They told of elderly people who gave up their seats so younger ones could live. They told of entire cities gathering in their final moments, singing traditional songs as the sky caught fire above them. Billions died. The exact number would never be known, but estimates ranged from 8 billion to 12 billion. The empire that had controlled 200 star systems was broken in a single week. On Earth, the mood was complex. Some people celebrated. They remembered the murdered humans and felt that justice had been served. Others were horrified by the scale of death. Protests erupted in major cities. People demanded that Admiral De be arrested for crimes against sapient life. De herself stood in a conference room, looking at reports from across human space. Wu stood with her. They had not slept properly in days. Public opinion is divided, Mi-sun reported. 40% support our action, 30% oppose it, 30% are undecided. What about the military? They asked. Fully behind you, Admiral. Every officer understands we had no choice. De nodded slowly. She had expected this. Ordinary people could afford to debate morality because they were safe. Soldiers understood that sometimes survival required terrible choices. Dr. Sung entered the room. He looked like he had aged 10 years in 1 week. Dark circles surrounded his eyes. His hands shook slightly. Admiral, the Stellar Engineering Division requests deactivation authorization. The devices have served their purpose. We should shut them down. No, De said firmly. The devices remain active. We may need them again. Sung looked shocked. But Admiral, we have already shown the galaxy what happens when someone commits genocide against humanity, Do interrupted. The devices stay active as a reminder, as a deterrent. If any other species decides humans are easy targets, they will remember what happened to the... Sung opened his mouth to argue, then closed it. He nodded and left. 3 days after the attack, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. The Council was an organization of 12 major species that tried to maintain peace in the galaxy. They had never dealt with anything like this before. Ambassador Wu represented humanity at the session. She was a diplomat with 20 years of experience. She had argued for human interests in countless negotiations. Now she would argue for humanity's survival. The council chamber was massive, with seats for representatives from dozens of species. All of them stared at Wu with a mixture of fear and disgust. The council leader was a being called a tall and crystalline. Its voice resonated through the chamber. Ambassador Wu, your species has committed an atrocity. Billions of are dead. Entire worlds are uninhabitable. How does humanity justify this? Wu stood calmly. She activated a holographic display. The murdered 2 million human civilians without warning or provocation. This is documented. Images appeared of the destroyed colonies. The council members looked away. After this attack, Wu continued, humanity sent a clear warning to the... We told them their worlds would face consequences. We gave them 72 hours to evacuate civilian populations. This is also documented. She showed recordings of Wu's message. She showed timestamps proving the warning was sent days before the attack. The response was to mock our warning and murder thousands more humans. They chose not to evacuate. They chose to continue their genocide. Humanity warned them. Humanity gave them time. They made their choice. A representative from a species called the Toral stood up. But the scale of death, billions died. How many billions did the plan to kill? Wu asked coldly. They promised to cleanse all human worlds if we did not submit. We have colonies containing 15 billion people. Were we supposed to let them die because the thought we were weak? The chamber fell silent. Another representative spoke. Humanity's weapon is too dangerous. Stars themselves as weapons. This violates all principles of war. The destroyed 3 cities full of civilians from orbit, Wu replied. They used overwhelming force against defenseless targets. We simply responded in kind. The only difference is we gave warning. They gave none. The debate continued for hours. Some species condemned humanity. Others quietly admitted they understood. A few even expressed approval, saying they had been bullies for too long. Finally, the council leader spoke. This council cannot approve of humanity's actions, but neither can we condemn them without being hypocrites. They began this war with genocide. Humanity ended it the same way. Perhaps this is justice. Perhaps this is horror. Perhaps it is both. No formal punishment was issued. The council was too divided. Instead, they passed a simple resolution. Humanity was asked to dismantle its stellar weapons network. Wu politely declined. Humanity will keep its weapons, she stated. Not because we want to use them again, but because we never want to be victims again. Let the galaxy remember what happened here. Let every species know that humanity can be destroyed, but we will not die alone. We will take our enemies with us. Back on Earth, Commander Wu visited the ruins of New Colony. A memorial had been built there, listing the names of everyone who died. 2 million names carved into black stone. He found his name near the bottom. His little sister who had wanted to save lives, who had dreamed of growing gardens on new worlds. He placed a small flower beside her name. A voice spoke behind him, Commander Wu. He turned and saw Dr. Jin. She was a who specialized in culture. She had studied them for years, learned their language, even made friends with some of them. Dr. Wu acknowledged. Jin looked at the memorial with tears in her eyes. I knew some of the who died. Good people, artists, scientists, children, they did nothing wrong. I know, Wu said quietly. Was this justice, Jin asked, or revenge? Wu was quiet for a long moment. I do not know. I think about it every night. I see their faces when I close my eyes. But then I think about what would have happened if we had not stopped They would have continued killing until humanity was extinct. So we became monsters to stop monsters. Perhaps we showed the galaxy that humanity is not easy prey, that we will defend ourselves with everything we have. The thought we were weak. They learned otherwise. Jin wiped her eyes. I understand why we did it. I even agree it was necessary, but understanding does not make it hurt less. No, Wu agreed, it does not. Meanwhile, in the ruins of what had been a small group of survivors emerged from deep underground shelters. They had somehow survived the solar storms by hiding in reinforced bunkers deep beneath the surface. Among them was the scientist Pix and her offspring. They crawled out into a world that no longer resembled home. The sky was a sickly yellow, the ground was cracked and blackened. Nothing lived, nothing moved. Pix held her children close and wept. Her beautiful world was gone. Her civilization was destroyed. And all because war leader had been too proud to evacuate when the humans warned him. She thought about the human message. Your worlds will burn. Such a simple statement, so much truth in it. Pix had been a scientist. She understood cause and effect. They had murdered millions of humans. The humans had warned of consequences. They had ignored those warnings. This was the result. As she led her children toward a rescue ship sent by one of the surviving colonies, Pix made a decision. She would remember this. She would teach her offspring to remember. They had learned a terrible lesson about humanity. Never threaten a species that can turn stars into weapons. On Earth, Admiral De sat alone in her office late at night. On her desk was a letter of resignation. She had written it but not yet submitted it. Many people wanted her to stand trial for war crimes. Others called her a hero. She was neither. She was simply a soldier who had made an impossible choice. Save humanity or be merciful to the enemy. There had been no third option. A message appeared on her screen. It was from Captain Sangwoo, still in space with the stealth fleet. Admiral, all systems remain operational. Network is stable. Shadow of Earth requests permission to return home. De typed a response. Permission granted, Captain. Well done, return to Earth. She leaned back in her chair and closed her eyes. Somewhere out in the galaxy, 47 stars continued their violent storms, slowly returning to stability. The devices had been deactivated, but they remained in place, ready, waiting. Humanity had crossed a line that could never be uncrossed. They had become a species capable of stellar genocide. The galaxy would never forget, and humanity would never be seen as innocent again. But they would also never be seen as weak. De thought about the price of survival. She thought about the billions who died. She thought about the billions who lived because of what she had ordered. In the end, she thought, survival was all that mattered. 6 months passed. The galaxy changed in ways no one had predicted. The Dominion no longer existed as a unified empire. The surviving scattered across space, becoming refugees. Some species welcomed them, others turned them away. The once mighty empire was now a cautionary tale told across 1,000 worlds. On Earth, Admiral De stood before the Galactic Council once again. This time, she was not alone. Representatives from 50 different species had come to hear what humanity had to say about the future. War Leader was also present. He was a prisoner now held by the Council for trial. The charges were simple: genocide, mass murder, crimes against sapient life. The evidence was overwhelming. Had personally ordered the destruction of 3 human colonies. He had killed 2 million people without warning or mercy. The trial was broadcast across the galaxy. Billions watched as sat in the defendant's cage, his once-proud form now hunched and defeated. The prosecutor was a human lawyer named Dong. He presented recordings from the destroyed colonies. He showed images of families burning. He played audio of children screaming. The council chamber fell silent. War Leader, Dong stated, "You ordered the murder of 2 million human civilians. You did this without warning, without provocation, without mercy. You did this simply because you viewed humans as inferior. How do you plead?" Looked at the floor. His voice was barely audible. Guilty. The word echoed through the chamber. No defense, no excuses, just admission of guilt. Dong continued, "And when humanity warned you of consequences, when we gave you 72 hours to evacuate your civilians, what was your response?" His voice cracked. "I laughed, I mocked your warning, I ordered more human worlds attacked. And now billions of your people are dead. Your empire is destroyed. Your worlds are ash. Was it worth it?" Looked up with hollow eyes. "No, nothing was worth this. I was a fool. I thought power meant immunity from consequences. I learned that even the strong can be brought low." The trial continued for days. Other officers, human survivors told their stories. Evidence was presented in overwhelming detail. In the end, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment. Would spend the rest of his days in a secure facility, a living reminder of what happened when genocide was chosen over peace. But the trial was not really about. It was about establishing precedent. The galaxy needed to understand what had happened and why. Admiral De took the stand on the final day. Ambassador Wu questioned her. "Admiral, explain to this council why humanity took such extreme action." This voice was steady. "The murdered millions of our people without warning. They promised to exterminate humanity if we did not submit to slavery. We had 3 options. First, surrender and accept extinction. Second, fight a conventional war we would likely lose. Third, demonstrate that humanity possesses deterrent weapons and will use them if necessary." "Why did you give the 72-hour warning?" Wu asked. "Because we are not monsters," De replied. "We did not want to kill civilians. We gave the leadership time to evacuate their people. They chose not to. That choice was theirs, not ours." A council member interrupted. "But billions died, Admiral. How can you justify that?" De turned to face the council directly. "I cannot justify it, I can only explain it. Humanity faced extinction. They were going to kill all 15 billion of us. We responded with a weapon that could ensure our survival. We gave warning. We gave time. They chose to ignore both. The moral burden of those deaths belongs to their leaders, not to us." The council debated for hours after her testimony. Some species argued that humanity should be punished. Others pointed out that they had started the war. A few species quietly admitted they were glad someone had finally stopped the expansion. In the end, the council issued a statement. Humanity would not be punished, but humanity was required to share its stellar weapons technology with the council. This would ensure no single species held such power alone. De refused. Humanity will not share this technology, she told the council. Not because we want monopoly over weapons, but because we built these devices defensively over decades of secret work. We never wanted to use them, but we will not disarm. The galaxy has seen what happens when humanity is threatened. Let that be deterrent enough. The council protested. They threatened sanctions. They demanded compliance. De simply walked out of the chamber. Later that day, Wu found Deng in a quiet garden on the council station. The admiral sat on a bench, looking at alien flowers. "You made enemies today," Wu said, sitting beside her. "Better to be feared than destroyed," De replied. "Is that what we have become, a species defined by fear?" De was quiet for a moment. "No, we are a species defined by survival. We tried peace. We tried diplomacy. They answered with genocide. Now the galaxy knows that humanity can be pushed, but there is a line. Cross that line and we will respond with everything we have." "Do you think we will use the stellar weapons again?" Wu asked. "I hope not," De said quietly. "But hope is not a plan. The weapons remain active. The network stays in place. If another species tries what they attempted, they will receive one warning, just one. Then their stars will burn." Meanwhile, on a human colony called New Start, a young man named walked into a military recruitment office. He was 18 years old, tall and thin, with nervous eyes. The recruiter looked up from his desk. "Can I help you?" "I want to join the Earth Defense Fleet," said. "Why?" Thought about his answer. He thought about his uncle who died on Haven's Gate. He thought about the war. He thought about the billions who died on both sides. "Because someone has to protect humanity," finally said. "Someone has to make sure we never face extinction again. Someone has to be willing to do terrible things so that our children can live in peace." The recruiter studied him. "You understand what that means. You understand what our fleet did to the—" "Yes, sir, we gave them warning, we gave them time. They chose to continue genocide, so we burned their worlds. It was not justice, it was not revenge, it was survival." The recruiter nodded slowly. "That is the right answer. Welcome to the fleet, recruit." Sign the papers. He would train for 2 years, then serve on a ship defending human space. He would be one of thousands of young people who joined after the war. They understood something that previous generations had not. Peace was not guaranteed. Safety was not a right. Survival required strength and the will to use it. Across the galaxy, other species watched humanity carefully. Some began their own secret weapons programs, hoping to match human capabilities. Others decided that peace with humanity was the best policy. A few attempted to forge alliances, thinking that human protection was valuable. The balance of power had shifted. On Earth, Commander Wu visited New Memorial one last time. He had been promoted to captain and would soon lead his own ship. But before he left, he wanted to say goodbye too. He stood before her name on the memorial wall. So many names, so many dead. "I am sorry it came to this," he said quietly. "I am sorry we could not save you, but we made sure no one else will die like you did. The galaxy learned. Humanity is not to be trifled with." He placed a flower by her name and turned to leave. Behind him, the memorial stood silent under Earth's sun, a reminder of the price paid, a warning of the consequences of threatening humanity. Dr. Sung retired from the Stellar Engineering Division. He could not continue working with the weapons he had helped create. He became a teacher instead, educating young scientists about ethics and responsibility. Engineer Sora took over his position. She maintained the stellar weapons network with cold efficiency. Someone had to ensure the devices remained functional. Someone had to be ready in case humanity needed them again. Captain Sangwoo continued commanding stealth ships. His mission was simple: patrol deep space, maintain the network, and ensure no one discovered the locations of humanity's hidden devices. It was lonely work but necessary. The galaxy settled into an uneasy peace. The survivors built new colonies far from human space. They told their offspring about the war, about the mistakes their leaders made, about the price of arrogance. A new generation grew up understanding that power was not the same as invincibility. Admiral Day eventually retired. She was 65 years old and tired beyond measure. She had carried the weight of billions of deaths for years. Now she wanted to rest. On her last day in uniform, she stood in Earth Defense Command and looked at the young officers who would replace her. They were bright, dedicated, and understood the burden they carried. "Remember," she told them, "the stellar weapons are a last resort. We used them once. The galaxy will never forget. Use them again only if humanity faces extinction. Otherwise, find another way." "Yes, Admiral," they replied. Da walked out of the command center for the last time. She went home to a small house in the countryside. She tried to sleep without nightmares. Sometimes she succeeded. The story of humanity's war with the became legend. It was taught in schools across the galaxy. Different species interpreted it differently. Some said humanity was cruel. Others said humanity was survivors. A few said humanity was terrifying. All of them agreed on one thing. Humanity was never to be pushed to extinction, because humans had proven they would burn the galaxy rather than die alone. Years passed, decades, the war became history, new conflicts arose, new alliances formed. The galaxy moved forward. But in deep space, hidden among asteroids and dead moons, the stellar weapons remained, inactive but ready, waiting. And on Earth, in every military academy, new recruits learned the doctrine that emerged from the war. It was simple, direct, unforgettable. Peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. Peace is the choice not to use it. But when monsters force your hand, you show them exactly why humanity survived when greater species fell. You give them one warning. Then you burn their worlds as they burned yours. Not from cruelty, but so that future children never have to. The galaxy remembered, and humanity never forgot. Above Earth, the sun shone peacefully, unaware of the terrible power humans had learned to wield. Children played in parks. Cities hummed with life. Colonies expanded across the stars. Peace reigned, maintained by the knowledge of what humanity could do if threatened. The stellar weapons network remained active, hidden, patient, a sword of Damocles hanging over the galaxy held by human hands. Never again would humanity be victims. Never again would billions die without warning. The message had been sent and received. Humanity's worlds would not burn, but those who tried to burn them would face fire beyond imagining. This was the new order. This was the price of threatening human survival. This was the galaxy after humanity said, "Never again," and meant it.